Hi there. Welcome to the Business of Story. I'm Park Howell, and today we're going to explore a new online music platform that helps you capture your stories from the songs you loved growing up and how you can use it to create authentic and powerful relationships at work. But first, our story marketing moment for you. Are you bashful about telling your stories? I mean, I hear it all the time. People say, I don't have any good stories to tell, or no one wants to hear my story, or my stories just aren't very interesting. Well, I can tell you that is actually a lie you are telling yourself. Nothing could be further from the truth. And here's how you overcome your storytelling shyness. Stop thinking about telling a story. I know that seems kind of weird coming from me, but that's what it's all about. Just forget about storytelling altogether. Instead, I want you to think in moments, because you know what? All great stories are based on a moment, or you might even think about them as a scene. Heck, I did an entire TEDx talk about this very subject. It was titled, Stop Looking for Your Story and Start Finding Your Scenes. And the reason why is when you find those moments that have shaped who you are today, those moments that define what you stand for, that makes you stand out, find those moments or scenes and your stories are going to come together for you. Now, over the past several shows, I've been taking you by the ear through the story cycle system. We started in Chapter 1 to identify your position statement or your backstory. Then we moved to Chapter 2 by identifying the central characters in your brand story, which, by the way, are your customers, your core audiences. Chapter 3, we looked at what's at stake for them. I had you identify their emotional wish and what do they physically want to buy to fulfill that wish. You identify all this stuff and you start finding the stories or the scenes that you want to share with them to trigger their will to act. In fact, last week we really explored this idea about triggering their will to act through the scenes that you have to share. So if you haven't heard that show, jump back and check it out. So now what I want you to do is stop thinking in story, but thinking in moments. Thinking in those moments where you have really helped a client, a customer, a colleague, or a community member to help them get what they want out of life through your product, service offering, or your people. Share that moment, that scene, and your story will find you. Now you can learn more about creating a robust story marketing plan through those moments when you shine in my new book, Brand Bewitchery. It's now available on Amazon and Apple Books. Plus, you can craft your own brand story using my DIY online tutorial at businessofstory.thinkific.com, or you can do both and benefit from 6 live sessions with me during a coming Build a Better Brand Story Sprint. Either way, I'll show you the power of moments and teach you how to tell them. My goal is to help you excel through the stories you tell. One of the ways to trigger those storied moments in your life that have shaped who you are today and what you stand for is through the soundtrack of your life, especially the artists and albums you listened to in your formative years. Brian Mohr, co-founder of Anthym.life, has created a platform to help you assemble your personal soundtrack and share it with your colleagues and clients to connect your scenes with their story.
For those that want to engage, who want to find that sense of connection and believe that building better relationships leads to both better business outcomes as well as just more fulfillment in your own life, we open the door and do our best to lead them through it. And whether or not they go is up to them. Some people choose not to. They'll spend that time maybe staying really high level or sharing a song or two, and that's about where it starts and stops. And then there's others like yourself who go really deep, and like once you open the spigot, you can't turn it off.
Brian's career is a learning-based journey with an intense focus on people, purpose, values, culture, and leadership, while advocating capitalism as a powerful force for good. He's worked at Jobbing.com, P.F. Chang's China Bistro, Y Scouts, and Conscious Capitalism Arizona. Today, Brian is channeling his experiences and energy towards unlocking the power of authentic human connection through his new startup, Anthym.life, a social wellness company focused on helping culture-driven organizations create and nurture meaningful relationships amongst their people to create more value both for the business and the people. Brian is on the National Board of Directors of Conscious Capitalism, Inc. He is a board member and president emeritus of the Arizona chapter of Conscious Capitalism, a member of the board of directors of the Better Business Bureau of the Pacific Southwest, a member of the advisory board of the Crum Foundation, and the co-author of Hiring on Purpose, How the Y Scouts Method is Revolutionizing the Search for Leaders. So please welcome to the Business of Story. And as you listen, I want you to start thinking about the soundtrack for your life, co-founder of Anthym.life, Brian Mohr. Brian, welcome to the show.
Oh, it is a pleasure to be here, Park. Thanks for having me, man.
It was fun reconnecting with you a couple weeks ago at the famous Brian Burkhart's Santa Squad event one Saturday, where a bunch of us Santas got together with our wives and significant others and ran around Phoenix handing out envelopes of money and fun. It was great fun.
It was something. It's unlike anything I've ever done, and obviously you and I shared our enthusiasm for that experience and bringing a little bit of holiday cheer to those who are working so hard to serve us day in, day out. It's a hell of an event, and hopefully we can get a lot more people out in follow-on years.
Absolutely. And it was great to reconnect with you. You and I were kind of sitting opposite each other. It's like, I think I know this guy. I'm not sure I know this guy. And then as we got to talking, you were the founder or co-founder of Y Scouts out here in Arizona. And when I was running Parking Company, the ad agency, you guys reached out to us and we did a little promotion work with you, a video as I recall doing, and then comes full circle, 10 years later, and here we are in Santa Squad. So it's great to have you on the show.
It's crazy. It's another evidence point of how small the world truly is, man.
And just to set the scene a little bit for me, and then I guess our listeners, describe what Y Scouts is. When you were there, and I know you've moved on from there, but Y Scouts is still very much a thing.
Very much so, and I'm so proud of the team there, and my former business partner, who's still a great friend of mine, Max Hansen. You know, Max and I came together to launch that business. It was in early 2012, and the idea around it was to really emphasize the importance of the human alignment with an organization at the leadership level. So at its core, Y Scouts is a purpose-based leadership search firm. And there's a lot of executive search firms and leadership search firms out there, and the majority of them are, organized either around an industry or around a job function. And there's a ton of value to organize a business around that. And yet we decided to carve out a niche, not only aligning people and companies based upon either the job function or the industry, but also the human alignment is the purpose and values of the business, one in which the leader, the potential leader, is really going to align with and allow them to bring their highest contribution to the team that they're going to lead. And it was a rough go first year or two, but then we really started to hit our stride. And I'm really proud to say that they're still kicking some serious butt today.
And it's different than a regular headhunting placement firm, isn't it? You're not just looking for talent. You're looking for alignment more than anything.
100%. 100%. I mean, talent is, people are everywhere. And I think the traditional job search process, whether it's at the executive level or at any other level of the organization, has been largely predicated on skill fit between the individual and the job. And that's super important. No question about it. You're not going to hire somebody that can't actually do the job that you need them to do. But I think we've all been learning as business has evolved that, okay, these intangible factors matter a lot. And if you can find leaders who really care deeply about, the organization's culture, the values that guide its daily behaviors, as well as the mission, like why does the business truly exist and what does it stand for? When you can find a leader that aligns on those elements, you've just tapped into one of the greatest accelerators of performance.
And you've got this new app platform out, Anthym.life, which we're going to talk about in a minute, but I found fascinating. You first introduced it to me during the Santa Squad after hours cocktails, and I thought it was really interesting because you play off the power of moments in people's lives. And in my line of work, I'm always trying to dig for those moments, and people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. I can't, they have a hard time getting themselves back to that moment in time that curiosity and passion took over, and they're like, wow, it shaped who they are today. But you've done this with Anthym.life through music, and how music has had such a profound effect on most everybody, because we can remember when we heard that right song at that right time at a when we were youngsters in our lives, and how it kind of impacted us. So we're going to talk about that in a moment, but I want to go back to your backstory. Some of the moments in your life that have led you to where you are today, because you do so much work in what I guess I characterize as human resources, and yet it's so much more than that.
So, it's interesting. My my entrance into the field of human resources, people, culture, whatever you want to call it, really came by accident. I was about 5 years out of college. So this was late 1998, 99, or late 1990s. And I had been in the financial services space for about 5 years. And just while I found the financial aspect of it, my earning was fulfilling, the meaning that I just felt was not there. And so thank God bless my wife, super supportive. She's like, listen, you come home every day from work, you're fairly miserable. You need to go find something you're going to love to do. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And so I quit that job and got so lucky, right place, right time, and was one of the first handful of employees to be hired on at jobbing.com. This was in April of the year 2000, and was really fortunate to be included in the founding group of employees. And that's where I really cut my teeth in what I think business can aspire to be like in terms of culture, in terms of hiring, in terms of valuing and developing people. I was there for just shy of 11 years. And it was awesome. It was for sure like the turning point for me in my career that showed me a different way. And no disrespect to the financial services industry, but I was working for a juggernaut of a company, and they're not around anymore. They've since been acquired. But I felt like one of the cogs in the wheel, and not really making a big difference. And so that's where things really changed for me. And from that, Y Scouts was born, and a variety of other career stops along the way. But jobbing was really where my eyes were open to the power of values, power of purpose, power of culture, power of people.
And do you think you had this in your life prior to that, and they just kind of awakened it in you? Was there ever a time as a young man where you saw those two worlds coming together, business and the power of purpose, that you could look back on and say, that's kind of shaped who I am today?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't know that I would have used that language. I was part of, during my high school years, for 4 years, I was on the swim team, and where I grew up in Northwest Indiana, of all states, happens to be, at least it was back then, I don't know if it still is, a really, really competitive state when it comes to organized swimming. And when I was a freshman in high school, through my senior year in high school, being a member of that team, we have head-to-head meets against other schools throughout the swim season. I never walked back to the locker room on the losing end of a head-to-head meet for 4 years. We were 4 years undefeated. I mean, that's the kind of teamwork and discipline and practice that our coach and us as swimmers, were able to instill in one another. And it was just this really powerful experience. And I don't know if I'd be lying if I said I could articulate it as we had this sort of core purpose, but for us, it was around each individual delivering what they were best at, because swimming's such an individualized sport, yet every individual needs to do the best at their particular stroke, whether it was freestyle, breaststroke, butterfly, backstroke, whatever it is. And together, if everyone does their best, the team collectively, the sum is greater than the whole of the parts. So, yeah, it's an interesting question, but I think jobbing was really where it all started for me, and seeing how powerful purpose can be.
Yeah. And I guess using the swim metaphor, helping people find their lanes in the right place, the right jobs at the right time, so that they can excel in their positions. All right. I stretched that metaphor as far as I possibly could.
That was pretty good, man.
Let's keep moving on then. Let's talk about Anthym. Anthym.life. part of why, oh, I know what I was going to ask you. I've always wondered with Y Scouts, you as a co-founder, why'd you call it Y Scouts? What does that mean?
So back in the late 60s, there was a group of MIT professors that, and one of the last names is McGregor. I forgot the other one, that sort of were the founding fathers of Theory X and Theory Y management. And Theory X management, which had been the predominant practice of management, was one in which operated by carrots and sticks. Like, people are going to be inherently lazy. You got to incentivize them to do great work, and you got to punish them when they do bad work. Theory Y, which was what this new theory that McGregor and his colleagues had brought to the world, was, no, I think we're looking at this wrong. People are inherently good and they want to get better, and getting better at whatever it is you do is its own reward, and you don't need to manage with carrots and sticks. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have performance improvement plans and incentive plans. They weren't arguing against that, but like, looking at the human resources, the people in the business, as inherently good. And so they launched this practice of Theory Y management, which stood in direct contrast to Theory X. And as Max and I were just brainstorming names and ideas of what are we going to call this firm, that was one of the things that just stuck out was, oh, I wonder if there's a play on this Theory Y. And both Max and I, recognizing that in sports, the scouts usually are the ones who identify latent talent and know, like, oh, that's somebody who's going to be great. Just, invest in them and they're going to be awesome. And we're like, maybe we could call it Y Scouts. And that's how it was born.
Gotcha. And then you left.
I did.
You left, moved on to this new adventure of building Anthym.life. Let's talk a little bit about that. What drove you to do that?
So when I joined back about 3.5 years ago, I joined an EO forum. I wanted to continue my personal and professional growth. And EO, for those that don't know, is essentially kind of a feeder system to YPO, which is a pretty well-known global peer-to-peer network of CEOs and presidents.
EO being Entrepreneurs
Organization.
Okay.
So I joined this forum, and the very first exercise that I went through is what they call the Lifeline exercise. And essentially what it is me presenting the story of my life in about an hour's time to this new group of strangers that are going to be there to help me grow personally and professionally. It was a really profound experience. And I was encouraged by the then moderator of our group, who was kind of like the onboarding leader. He's like, listen, Brian, the more raw, the more vulnerable you are in really telling this group about the life you've lived, the good and the bad, the better position they're going to be in to actually help you, with the growth that you're looking for. And so I'm a deep end of the pool kind of guy. I tend to be pretty vulnerable by nature. And so I'm like, all right, screw it. I just jumped in and I told them everything about my life. And it was amazing to me how quickly I was able to form some really serious trust-based bonds with this new group of strangers. And so from that, one of the gentlemen who had been in the group about a year longer than me is a product builder, a technology guy. He also had a very profound experience going through that same Lifeline exercise when he joined the forum the year before I did. And then just over the course of the past few years, got to talking about how powerful that is. We're like, is there a way to bring this to more teams, groups of people who are presumably organized to accomplish a common purpose or goal? And if they can build deeper levels of vulnerability-based trust, that's an accelerator of performance. If you feel safer around your teammates, if you trust them more, not just based on their competence level, but also in terms of their benevolence, that they're just good people, that's a deep accelerator of performance. And so that was the hypothesis. And knowing that not everyone is great at storytelling, we're like, there's got to be a way to help people sort of tap into those moments that have really served as the DNA or the fabric of their lives. And that's where music just sort of dawned, like, oh, wait a minute, maybe we can leverage the time machine-like power of music to help people reflect on moments that mattered. Some people can just get there. They don't need the musical help, but some people are like, I just need some help to think about what are those moments that really shaped who I am. And that's how music started to emerge as that elixir to help people reconnect.
Because I'm sure in your travels, as I've seen in mine, it is very hard to get team members to become vulnerable and think back in time and share a story that may have caused some pain in their life or where they completely failed. And yet that's where the story magic is. We want to know what people went through.
Yep.
You know, the oldest story in the book is man falls in a hole, man gets out of a hole. You know, it's even woman falls in a hole, woman gets out of a hole. And yet we in business are so afraid to talk about those holes that we find ourselves in and how did we get out? And to me, I think the reason why it works is it's a pure survival learning training tool. Because when I hear about something that you went through and how you got yourself out of that, my brain is just simply saying, I'm going to live vicariously through Brian and I'm going to learn what he did so I know what to do in case it ever happens to me.
Totally.
Even if we're not even remotely in the same world or the same career, or maybe you're an alpine mountain climber and you got to the top of Everest, I'm still going to listen to what happened to you when you got up to the col and you ran out of oxygen and what you did to do that. I may never be there, would never be there. But there's something about our limbic system that says you got to pay attention to what Brian went through because I need to know what I would do in case it ever happens to me. Long-winded way of saying this vulnerability, this talking about the downside of our lives, what we go through is so powerful in connecting. And I think this idea you've got of using music somehow takes the fear out of it, doesn't it? A little bit, because it takes you to a point in time.
It does. And it's so interesting, man. And again, this was a hypothesis that we had about a year ago. And here we are a year later. And that's what you just said is like the perfect summary of what music does is it like provides air cover or safety. And when you're sharing a story and in connection with a song that is symbolic of it, it just diffuses any of the potential fear or risk of sharing that story. And there's something really magical about the power of music. And there's, clearly there's other ways that people can share stories, but that music piece has really, really blown our minds with how powerful it is. It's a healing source. It's an uplifting source. It's a inspirational source. It's the universal language of mankind. I don't care what you listen to and where you're from. Everybody can connect to music. I've never met anyone in my life that hates music.
So how does Anthym.life work?
So teams, and particularly team leaders that are looking to really make sure that all of those office collisions that are the basis for relationship building, which have unfortunately been displaced as a result of the last year, leaders that really want to make sure that connection stays strong would bring us in, and we facilitate a virtual experience where each member of the team walks through a process where they reflect on moments from their life that have shaped who they are, that matter to them. They catalog those moments. They find the song that is symbolic of that moment. And it could be the song that they were listening to when the moment happened, or it could just be, the artist, the band, or the song that was kind of the top 40 hit at that time in their life. They catalog that. And then once they complete a small profile of 5 of those moments, and the team does that individually, we then come together as a group and facilitate a really powerful story sharing experience where individuals are total self-authoring. They pick from any of those 5, the ones that they are comfortable in sharing with their teammates. And it just opens up these doors of like, oh my God, Park, you and I have been working together for the last 5 years, like in the same building. And I just learned more about you in 20 minutes through your stories than I have in 5 years of seeing you every single day. And I think it's just helping give permission that it's okay to be you. It's okay to be human. You don't have to just be the box on the org chart that you fulfill day in, day out. And I can get to know you beyond the role you play for this organization.
And the music's the song that you set up in your anthem. Those 5 songs are that connecting point too, that people could say, oh, I didn't know Elton John had a huge impact in your life as a young man, as he did in mine. I love Elton John's music too. Or it may be someone who may be considerably younger than me and says, You like Ben Folds?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love Ben Folds. Let's connect. Why is that? How did he come into your life and what that's about? So I suppose that music opens up the door to those conversations and stories.
100%. 100%. And, we did a session with a pretty well-known company about 3 weeks ago, and never in a million years would I have guessed this team leader was a huge Metallica fan. Like you just wouldn't have guessed it, right? And shame on me. I don't mean to sound judgmental, but just based on the personality, the nature of the role that they play in the organization. And when that came out, I'm like, oh my God. And I immediately, and this was during us sort of prepping for the session itself, I immediately ran into my office because I have all of my old concert ticket stubs framed in this huge, back when actually tickets were printed, and some of them were really decorative and some of them were just the plain old Ticketmaster ticket stubs. But I had a ticket. My first Metallica concert was back in 1988 in Chicago. And I'm like showing this person the ticket stub, and we connected over that. And it was just really, really cool. Instantly, dropped any potential barriers or defenses that we might hold up as professionals in the workplace, and like connecting over Metallica. It was just super cool.
And your judgment went by the wayside.
Exactly.
I know what you mean. Hey, we all judge. It's a human thing. It's how we figure out fight or flight. Is this person a part of my tribe or not? Yep. And of course, we often don't judge the book by its cover correctly. So this is just another way of kind of opening up worlds and dialogue and getting people talking.
So true. And your fight or flight thing, Park, is so dead on, man. The more research I've done around the power of music and how quickly it takes us out of what tends to be almost a constant state of being in the amygdala hijack and moving into our prefrontal cortex and tapping into that sense of creativity and imagination. And music just immediately helps people tap into that they know it's there. And it's just powerful. It's really powerful.
Can anybody listening to this show jump over to Anthym.life and do a quick 5-song anthem for themselves? And,
yep.
and what's involved in that, and what do they get out of it when they do it? I mean, it's a loaded question because I've done it myself.
So, anybody can log on and do that right now. And Anthym, a slight spelling, Anthrym, so Anthym.life.
And why is that?
So, primary reason is the ANTHEM, that's taken. Like there was no chance in Snowball's chance and where that we were going to get that domain name.
But I like your brand story behind what you got.
Yes, thank you. And so interestingly, the why, I'm such a big music guy, shocker there. The why for me, when I look at the word anthem, the way we've spelled it, it sort of encapsulates the word rhythm in there. And there's a rhythm to life. And so, this notion of building your life's anthem, at some point, the Anthym platform, which has started with music as this initial module, we fully intend to add additional modules. Again, not everybody, you and I being huge music folks, there's some people who like it, but it's not nearly essential to their life. And maybe those moments in life might have been symbolized by a movie or a book or a TED Talk or a family tradition or a road trip. And so we want to layer in additional opportunities. And so Anthym, you're building the anthem of your life, the story of your life, the moments from your life. So we'll still kind of retain at our core the whole music piece of it, but allow us to graduate beyond music at some point. But when folks, they want to go to the website, go to Anthym.life, click on 5-moment intro. It'll walk you through a pretty easy wizard process where, we'll drop some subtle hints like, hey, you have an opportunity to build a profile on 5 moments from your life that have mattered to you. And it could be from, your first car, graduating from high school, participation on a sports team, birth of a child, whatever it is. It's totally up to you. You catalog those moments, you choose the song based from this massive song library that we've integrated with YouTube to provide it. And then you build 5 of those, and now you have your Anthym profile. And from there, you can do a lot with it. You can extend invitations to college buddies, high school buddies, church groups, family members, and you can invite people into your own private group and share in each other's stories and the music that accompanied those stories, and just get to know people that you love and care about on a much deeper level based upon the moments from their life.
I did it. And then once I got in and created my 5, I thought, I might change a couple of these, but I can tell you some of those that absolutely cemented who I am and shaped who I am. And my first one on the very top of the list, I'd mentioned Elton John earlier. So I was a young kid. I don't know. I might have been in the 5th grade, 6th grade, and I was listening to KJR radio, FM, 95 FM up in Seattle, and I was building a race car, gluing a race car model together down in my basement bedroom at the Happy H where I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I was listening to the radio, playing, all my favorite music, and Elton John's Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me came on. And Brian, the first time I heard that, I thought, that is the worst song I have ever heard. And I think it was because my young brain and ears weren't really in tune to some of the little bluesy stuff he did with it. And it just seemed so different to the other rock and roll that I'd been listening to. I thought, that is the worst song I ever listened. I can't even believe they're playing it. Well, I think like 3 hours later, I'm still working down there, my little model car, and they play it again. And I went from going, that is the worst song I ever heard, to that is the most amazing song I have ever heard. And it's what got me into music in a big, big way. I found out, it was on the Caribou album. I went to the record store with my brother, bought it, the very first album I ever owned. I read the liner notes, probably 100 times. I knew everything about it. I didn't even have a stereo, so I had to sneak into my older brother Steve's room when he wasn't out because, of course, he wouldn't let me use it when he was there. And I would sneak in there and play it. And so I'd listen to it in one ear, and I'd have to listen for him coming down the stairway in the other ear. And that was the song that really launched me into understanding and appreciating and diving into music in general, because I was just fascinated by how it was written and the liner notes, who was involved, who were the producers, who were the backup singers. I just totally geeked out on it. But I can tell you that was a seminal moment, the very first moment in my life, and why it's at the very top of my Anthem playlist.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm so curious, and I don't know how much you've thought about it, but in that 3-hour time frame from the first time you heard it and thinking it was, oh my God, I can't believe they played this on the radio, to then, a few hours later hearing it again and having the 180 of like, oh my God, like, what do you think changed? Was it just now that you heard it again?
I think I was growing up. I think my brain synapses were connecting. And they didn't connect the first time it went through. And the second time, because of what music does to you, melody-wise, harmony, rhythm, I think the synapses said, this is pretty damn cool stuff, Park, and started firing. And I don't know. I felt that way too. One of a very seminal moment in music wasn't too much later when Queen came out with Killer Queen.
Yeah.
And I was walking up the road with my buddy Joe Ely, and I literally had my transistor radio in my hand, listening to KJR 95 in Seattle, and Killer Queen came on. And I know exactly where I was standing in that road when I heard that for the very first time. The same thing happened. It was so unusual to me. It was such a novel rock and roll song that it absolutely captivated me. And I think it's just growing up in a brain, maturing, and those synapses finally saying, this is actually pretty good stuff, Park.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I love it. Isn't it interesting? I remember the song that launched me as well. But part of it was, I think I was born in 72. So right in early 80s when MTV came on the scene. And so all of a sudden music had this visual and theatrical element to it, as evidenced by videos that it had never had up until that point. And I was, in 1983, so I'm 11 years old, and I see a ZZ Top's "Gimme All Your Lovin'" video with, the cool Ford, hot rod car, and the girls in the video, and the ZZ Top keychain, and man, that song, that drum riff, and then that guitar riff that opens that song, like I was just blown away. Like, okay, rock and roll is going to be part of my life in a big way for the rest of it. I just knew it. I could feel it.
So you got the music and the video
Yep.
all at once. You weren't listening to it on a crappy little transistor radio. You were getting the full thing. Although we didn't have big screens back then either. So
I was listening to it on some gigantic Zenith television that, was on a pedestal, and it probably weighed 800 pounds, but
it probably had a wood cabinet around it too, didn't it?
Totally. You had to get up to change the channel.
It was furniture. TVs were furniture back then. They weren't something you just hung on your wall and had 80 inches of glorious HD 4K video. You were watching it on like a bureau with a little screen plugged into it. That's awesome.
Totally.
So I've had so much fun. I went in, I did my 5 songs, and then I added a bunch more after it. And then all it did in my mind is kept digging up more and more music. Oh, God, what about this song? Well, I'm paying short shrift to this song. Supertramp, a big, huge Supertramp fan. In fact, just prior to this recording, I had Pandora on and listening to the Supertramp channel. So Dire Straits popped up. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I mean, all the songs in the bands that I grew up on. I'm a little bit older than you, born in '61, so my formative years really started in the '70s and beyond. And good living.
I would love to have traded places with you for sure. I think the music that came out of the '60s and '70s is. Man, that's my cup of tea. All those bands. I don't even care who it is. I think music was just so thoughtful, so raw. It was just so good. And not that there aren't great artists still coming out today, but I guess I'm an old soul.
Yeah. The Who. Yeah. Stones.
Yeah.
Foreigner. I mean, REO, Speedwagon. Of course, I mentioned Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I only got to see him once in concert, and that was out here. Super Bowl halftime. I got tickets for, who was it? It was the Giants versus the Patriots when the Giants won.
Oh, yeah.
That crazy. And Tom Petty was the Super Bowl halftime show. And that's one regret. I wished I had seen a full Petty concert. I just think his music's incredible.
It is incredible. And what's so amazing about his music, too, is its simplicity in the way it's arranged, yet it's so every song is a sing along. Every song, it's just I got a chance to see him. One of the huge advantages of being part of Jobbing.com back in the day is when we had the naming rights deal of the Glendale Arena. I know it's called something else these days, but as a result of that, we had a nice suite in there, and Petty did a show in there, and so I got to see a Tom Petty show in Jobbing.com Arena. It was really, really great. Yeah, what a loss. What a loss.
All right, back to Anthym.life. This is a program of software as a service, a platform that you launched September this year.
We launched in August, the first commercial version in August. And so 4 months ago, a little over 4 months ago.
And how many groups have you worked with? You've been pretty active out there.
Yeah, we've been super active. And I think part of that is just timing is right, because so many teams right now, because of the physical displacement of being in an office, they're looking for ways to bring their people together and make sure culture stays strong. So I've facilitated personally probably 3 dozen different experiences so far, virtual experiences with teams of varying sizes, teams as small as 4, and then had a couple of really big groups that have been in excess of 150 people, which that's a little too big. I think as we've figured this out, the ideal team or group size to do one of these experiences with is right around a dozen to 15 people. Once you start having multiple Zoom screens, it's just a little much. But
and so what do you do? Do you say I've got a team of a dozen people and I want them to connect? Do each of them go to Anthym.life and fill out their 5-song anthem and then share it with everybody else? And that's the first thing.
So the first thing is exactly what you just said. They log in, they build their profile, and then they actually won't share until the actual virtual experience. We set it up. We do a really nice job of kind of creating the framework for it, just making sure everybody feels comfortable, emphasizing that this is your opportunity to share what matters to you and only the things that you're comfortable in sharing, and just setting it up and making sure that they understand sort of the rules of engagement. And then we take regardless of the size of the group, we typically will break folks up into smaller little breakout rooms so that there's a level of intimacy there. Usually groups of 4 we have found to be the sweet spot. And so you'll take a group of 12 or 15 or 20, break them up into groups of 4, and then they spend about a half hour or so with one another, again, sharing. They might go really deep on one of their 5 moments from their profile, or they might share kind of a high level of all 5 of their moments just to give sort of a more robust picture of these moments. It's really up to each individual. And then there's a variety of opportunities of what these teams do beyond the virtual experience, because this is intended to be something that it's flexing and working out a muscle. Trust isn't something that happens. It's not a one-time event. And working on building that level of vulnerability-based trust is something that it takes sustained effort. And so encouraging an ongoing cadence of this type of interaction where, we spend upwards of 70% of our adult lives at work. Why would we not take advantage of building meaningful relationships with our colleagues while we're with them?
And this is just another way to do that. I mean, there's all kinds of HR trainings and programs that try to pull this out of people, but you and I both know a lot of them don't work. And even when I'm out doing story workshops, you get the reluctant soul out there that says, yeah, I'm here because I have to. I ain't telling anybody my story. I'm not going there. This is just a way, as you said earlier, it provides air cover. This music provides air cover that says, no, here's actually an excuse, a way to do that. Do you ever get people that sit there and cross their arms and say, dude, I'm not doing this?
So nobody's like sort of taken that I am not doing this approach, but when they get what we've heard feedback is there are those folks that listen, and I'm not going to say that they're wrong. There are some folks that are just not wired to treat work as anything other than that's where I go earn my living, and my colleagues are my colleagues, but I am not going to show any more of who I am than what I have to. Mm-hmm. And listen, there are some people wired like that. I get it. I'm not here to change anybody. We simply, for those that want to engage, who want to find that sense of connection and believe that building better relationships leads to both better business outcomes as well as just more fulfillment in your own life, we open the door and do our best to lead them through it. And whether or not they go is up to them. Some people choose not to. They'll spend that time maybe staying really high level or sharing a song or two, and that's about where it starts and stops. And then there's others like yourself who go really deep, and like once you open the spigot, you can't turn it off.
Yeah, that's what I found. I mean, I was just looking at my Anthem going back in preparation for this interview, and I've got, I don't know, 15 songs on there now, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta get back on it because I'm giving short shrift to another 30 songs that had a big impact on me. So I've got to be fair at that. Yeah,
I think it's super cool for people that really, whether you're a diehard music lover or someone that really wants to have meaningful relationships with your colleagues because of the amount of time you spend with them, and because of your working, like the better connected you are, the better your work product is going to be. I mean, I'm biased, man. So that's just, I don't know if I'm weird or if there's a whole crap ton of people out there that agree with me. I tend to think that there are. And technology is advancing so fast. And, the better we are able to sort of separate ourselves from our machines. And I think that means tapping into what makes us human. And that's all of these soft skills: empathy, compassion, active listening, storytelling, curiosity. I mean, these are the things that we will, I hope, always do better than algorithms and artificial intelligence. And so this is just another way to develop those skills.
Well, LinkedIn came out towards the end of 2019, a study they did, and I can't recall the research firm they're with, but a very prominent employee, HR type research firm. And they said that now soft skills, where they always took second, place to the hard analytical skills that you can actually measure, but that executives are looking and leaders are looking for soft skills in people now and are ranking those higher than the hard skills of the techno type. There's a lot of people with a lot of talent that can handle all that stuff, but can they communicate? Can they connect? Can they build camaraderie? Will they be a part of a team? And you don't really get taught how to do that. in
Nope.
college. You
Nope,
get
you're
taught
right.
the hard skills.
Yep.
Let's make you tough. Let's make you smart. Let's make you logical and reasonable and get in there and sell. Well, human beings first lead with their heart, and it is the soft skills, it's the emotion. And that's what I like so much about Anthym.life. Not only because it plays to my love of music, but I just think it's a wonderful way to get people to open up and share a little bit about themselves.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I love that we're, birds of a feather. Yeah, I mean, time is such, right? It's our most precious non-renewable resource. And again, just given how much of it we spend with our colleagues, we spend more of our time with our colleagues than we do our family members. Most of us do. I am not willing to give up all that time and not have it be both productive from a work standpoint, but meaningful from a relationship standpoint. Like, it doesn't have to be either or. In fact, when you combine the both, you get better outcomes on both sides of the coin, better business outcomes and better human outcomes.
So last question for you. Startup mode, you've got Anthym.life out there. You've worked through, several dozens of companies. What's the biggest surprise? What has taken you, by surprise and saying, wow, that is a cool outcome. I wasn't expecting that, or I didn't see it coming?
I'm going to give you an answer that surprised me. I'm not going to say negatively, but it just surprised me, and I'm going to give you a positive one. So, again, I can't think of the right word, but on just a surprise of like, wow. As we did this a number of times, as folks are going through the process of creating their profile, we started to get a pattern of feedback where not everybody can immediately connect with moments from their life. And this is something you said right at the beginning of our conversation, that they need like some sort of prodding or to be spoon-fed a bit, like give me some suggestions of like, how do I even get started? And I think because I was able to just rattle off, a dozen moments from my life that have been really meaningful to me. I was surprised that people struggled with it, but it helped me, and it helped my business partner understand that we need to be much more thoughtful about helping people who don't immediately, maybe they're just not reflective. Maybe they don't think about, past moments from their life as anything other than that's in the past and I'm never going to revisit it again.
They've never been asked.
Yeah, and maybe that's it too.
No one's cared enough to ask them.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. Like, that's such a good point. I hadn't actually even given credence to that lens. On the positive side, I was just certain, again, and this is just sometimes it's hard to read the label from inside the jar, that people in the workplace are taking advantage of building really meaningful relationships with their colleagues, because that's the way I'm wired. And so when we get that pattern of feedback that I shared earlier of, oh my God, Brian, I've been sitting next to Park for the last 7 years in the same department, the same, office area, and I just learned more about him in 20 minutes than I have in 7 years. That blows me away. It really does. And just, it's like, oh my God, how can we get this to more people as quickly as possible? Because that feedback, man, that just lights me up for it just makes my day.
I can tell.
It's awesome, man. I mean, damn, we're just here for such a short period of time. Like, let's lead with love and kindness and empathy and compassion. And not to say that we can't have differences, but we are so much more alike than we are apart, all of us. And I think this is one way to start to highlight that. And the world needs more of it. God knows we got enough people out there trying to rip us apart. Like, let's put us back together.
And music is one way to do that.
Amen, brother. Music is medicine. I mean, you know it as well as I do. It is such a healing force. At least it can be.
Music is medicine. I love that. Brian, where can people learn more about you, and where can they start? I guess we've been told them Rhythm.life is where you want them to go to get their anthems. I'm sorry, Anthym.life.
I love that you said Rhythm.life, though.
Yeah,
it means the Y is sticking. I dig it.
The Y is totally
Anthym.life.
sticking. Anthym.life to get them up and running. And I'm telling you, folks, go do it. It is so much fun. It's just so cool to kind of relive that and actually put your history down in the music. But is there anywhere else you want to send them or learn more about the work you do?
I mean, yeah, if you certainly can visit me on LinkedIn. I am also occasionally on Twitter. I like to find it or use it for my news source, but I'll tweet here and there. But I would say LinkedIn, if they want to find out more about my work, if they want to find out really more about me, like Brian Mohr, the guy behind the LinkedIn profile, then visit my Anthym profile, which you can find on Anthym. And you can find all the different moments and stories from my life that I've cataloged and the music that has been the soundtrack of those moments.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you having me on and you just jumping in and being so enthusiastic about it, Park. So thank you for everything you've done.
Rock on.
Rock on, man.
Hey, listen, folks, if you liked what you heard here, or you've got friends and families and colleagues that you think would be interested in Anthym.life, well, share this show with them. They can meet the co-founder of it, Brian Mohr here. But jump on over there. Fill out your Anthym. It is just a lot of fun. And when you're done with that, come on over to the Business of Story. Send me a note. Send me your link to Anthym.com or Anthym.life at park@businessofstory.com. I would love to see what your Anthym is. I would love to learn more about you that way. So share the show, share the link, get your story pulled together by finding the moments in the music that has helped shape who you are today. If I can help you shape your business or brand story or work with your sales team and your HR folks and their storytelling to build that storytelling culture, then visit me over at businessofstory.com. I've got a ton of tools, tips, techniques, and talent like Brian there just waiting to help you craft and tell compelling stories that sell. I am also doing, of course, my Build a Better Brand Story Sprint. I kicked those off last year, kind of a response to COVID. People were saying, man, I don't got a lot of money. I don't have a lot of time. I'm exhausted, but I need to clarify my brand story. And that was the invention of my 3-week Build a Better Brand Story Sprint. What you get in it? Yourself, 9 other professionals. It's just an intimate 10-person cohort. You get my new book, Brand Bewitchery, How to Wield the Story Cycle System to Craft Spellbinding Stories for Your Brand. So that's going to be your guide. Plus, you also get my online course, a $400 value. It's all a part of this program, so you'll be working through the online course. You get me over 3 weeks, 6 live sessions where I am working with you and your cohort to dial in your brand story. And you know what? We're going to talk a little bit about music in that because Brian has ignited in me some ideas about how we can arrive at your moments and even that really impact your brand story using Anthym.life. And then finally, when it's all said and done, you and I do a one-on-one session with your story. So I help you really clarify it, dial it in. And for some of the participants, those that actually sometimes have the guts to do this, I'll have you right here on Business of Story, and we will share your new story with the world. I mean, what better way to not only clarify it, I'm going to teach you how to tell it, and I'm going to give you a voice here on the platform at Business of Story. So check it out over at my website, businessofstory.com. Look for Build a Better Brand Story Sprint. We'll be doing them all throughout 2021. All right, I'm going to take a deep breath there and remind you to join us next week when we will have another story artist like Brian right here for you on Monday. And until then, know that the most important story you'll ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a great one. Thanks so much for listening. Right on.